Hey, everybody. I am trying something different. So tonight, I was supposed to be with a client and they canceled at the last minute. So I thought, what can I do with my time rather than just hanging out? Sure, I could go play some video games, but I thought I would use my um, business time, which is this set time period that I have right now, to do something different. So, with that being said, hi, hi everybody. My name's Carlton, and I used to be the guy who would literally get sick to my stomach before any presentation. Now that's probably a weird thing to say since I'm live here on what am I on YouTube? I think tonight, but I'm literally my heart would pound and my palms would sweat and the voice in my head would be saying, everyone's going to figure out that you don't belong here. Like you're going to pass out and everybody's going to realize that you should not be on stage right now or on this live or at work giving this particular presentation. I would just stress myself out. My heart would pound. It would just be a mess. But here's the crazy part. Over the course of my career, right? Like I've been in a variety of different environments. So I was a senior leader at a Fortune 50 company and I had to be able to talk to people on the C-suite. I've been a pastor of a church and I had to be able to talk to the people and give sermons. I've been a public speaker giving talks about technology. And I've had to share in a variety of different environments. And even as a young kid, when I would speak, I was, on paper, I was that kid who was very successful. But the inner story that I had was literally destroying me. And tonight I'm going to share how I went from that terrified speaker to someone who actually uses the nervous energy as fuel. And more importantly, how you can rewrite whatever story is holding you back. So drop a fire emoji in the comments if you've ever felt successful on the outside, but struggled with that inner critic. And we're going to cover three very simple steps. They all start with the letter R because I like alliterations. So reset, rewire, and rewrite. Reset, rewire, and rewrite. That these three simple steps can change your life. So stick around because this is going to get good. So I'm not seeing any comments right now. And in my script, this was the part where I would say, hey, I really am appreciating the comments. But that's okay because I know that in the system that I'm using, some things don't show up. So I'm assuming you guys are making amazing comments. So thank you. Keep it up. Put those fires in the chat. And don't worry, you're not alone. I'm with you every step of the way. So let me ask you something. How many of you have tried to think positive and to think positive your way out of stress? Like you said, I'm going to just push as hard as I can and think as positive as I can. And that's going to get me out of stress. That's going to get me out of anxiety. That's going to get me out of self-doubt. If that's you, put a raised hand emoji in the chat if you've ever been there in that moment. But here's the thing. This is why that doesn't work. Your brain is literally designed to keep you safe by running the same patterns over and over again. That voice telling you I'm not qualified or I don't deserve this isn't trying to hurt you. It's trying to protect you from an imagined danger. But here's what I learned as a software engineer. You can't fight the old program. You have to install a new one. At the very least, you've got to modify the story. So let me tell you about one of my clients. For those of you who don't know, my wife and I run a company called Kaleidoscope Coaching Services, and we work with people all the time to help them overcome those limiting beliefs, overcome those subconscious stories that they tell themselves. And this by far is one of my favorite client stories. So I have a mom of four. She hasn't slept well for years, and she's always been considered a light sleeper. She got married as a light sleeper. She had children as a light sleeper, and any little sound would wake her up, and that would make her mind race, and she'd be up for hours. And she had tried all kinds of different things to like get past this sleep issue. She tried apps. She tried various music types. She's had sleep pills, melatonin, and even some type of meditation and prayer. But what we discovered was that her brain had learned that being a light sleeper meant she was being good, like she was being prepared. She was being a good mom, even in that case. She was unconsciously terrified that if she slept deeply, she might miss something. And that was always a difficult thing for her to kind of get past. So do me a favor, for those of you who are watching and are still here with me, what's one story your brain tells you to keep you safe that's actually keeping you stuck? Don't overthink it. Just share the first thing that comes to mind. Uh, I know one of the ones that I hear quite a bit is I'm not smart enough or I don't deserve success. Another one is I have to be perfect. If it's not perfect, I can't do it. And these are all exactly the types of stories that I'm talking about. And honestly, this is what reset means. It means interrupting the automatic pattern long enough to install something better. But you can't just think your way out of it because 90% of this is happening below your conscious awareness. And this brings us to step number two. As somebody who's spent 20 years in tech, I needed to understand how this actually works. I'm naturally skeptical of anything that sounds too good to be true. Here's the science behind what's going on in your brain. About 90% of your mental processing happens in your subconscious mind. When your conscious mind says, I'm confident, but your subconscious is running the program of I'm a fraud, guess which one wins? The subconscious every time. And this is why hypnosis is so powerful. And no, it's not what you see in movies. I'm not going to grab a stopwatch and start swinging it in front of the camera. Hypnosis is simply a state of focused attention, and that lets you access and update those subconscious programs. It's like getting admin access to your brain's operating system. Brain imaging shows that even during hypnosis, the areas responsible for self-consciousness, sorry, my eyes are the areas responsible for self-consciousness and critical thinking, they quiet down, while the areas for learning and neuroplasticity light up. You're literally in the optimal state for installing new mental software. And when I started working on my speaking fear, like really, really honing in on it, I tried everything conscious. Like I would positive self talk, visualizations, confidence techniques. Nothing stuck because essentially I was trying to override 20 plus years of programming with willpower. But when I learned to work with my subconscious mind instead of against it, everything changed. The same nervous energy that used to paralyze me now powers my confidence. For me, when I walk on stage or even when I get ready to do something like this, which is well outside of my comfort zone, for folks who know me, I'm an introvert. I like to sit in my chair and fold into it, play video games, not necessarily interact with a lot of people. But I learned to take that energy that I have when I get in those uncomfortable situations and turn it into, you know, stress and turn it into like confidence, like really change the way that that felt. So remember that mom that I mentioned earlier? Once we rewired her subconscious to understand that deep sleep actually made her better as a person, employee, as a mom, not worse. Her entire sleep pattern transformed. Now she sleeps like a rock and told me that I changed her life. And that's what happens when you change the story at the subconscious level. It feels effortless in your conscious experience. So do me a favor, if you're out there watching, put a brain emoji or write the word brain in the comments. And especially write that there if you're starting to understand why willpower alone hasn't been enough to create the changes you want. And I can't wait to see those brain emojis. But I'm pretty sure that while you might be putting them there, they're not showing up in my streaming software that I have running right now. Because I see you're there, but I don't see anything showing up in the chat. So let me tell you about another client. We'll call him Marcus because, of course, that's not his real name. Every morning, he'd look in the mirror and see the same story. I'm the guy who got lucky. Eventually, they'll figure out that I don't really know what I'm doing. Now, Marcus was a VP at a tech company. He had an MBA. He had 15 years of experience, but his internal story hadn't caught up with his reality. Does that sound familiar to anybody out there? Drop a thumbs up if that hits home. But here's the beautiful thing about stories. They can be rewritten. We worked together to craft his new story. And that was a combination of understanding that and getting him to say, I'm someone who combines competence with curiosity, and my willingness to keep learning is my strength, not my weakness. A combination of doing that, retelling that story in his brain, while also recognizing that he had done a lot in the course of his career. So getting him to actually look at what he had accomplished and changing the story that he told himself really upped his game. I mean, literally, we took the same facts with a completely different story. And when your story changes, everything changes. So after I worked together, Marcus said, I still notice when I don't know something, but now it feels like an exciting puzzle to solve instead of evidence that I'm a fraud. Now, I want you to try something right now. Think about one area where you struggle. Maybe it's confidence, maybe stress or sleep or focus. What story does your inner voice tell you? What is your inner voice telling you about that area? Now I want you to think, what would be a better story? What would that better story sound like? Share it in the comments below and let's talk about it. And we can rewrite some of those stories together live. Now, again, I know my streaming software is failing me drastically. And as a tech professional, I probably should have done better to make sure that this was going to work right. But here we are. So let's take an example from one of my clients. So somebody saying, I had someone who's like, I'm always behind, from I'm always behind to I'm exactly where I need to be, right? So let's say you always feel like I'm not far enough ahead. And I actually think I did a podcast episode on that. I'll have to link that in the show notes. Do you do show notes for lives? But anyway, so I had this one where it was like I always felt like I should be further along. I haven't gotten as far as I need to be. But when I began and when I got work with the client to understand for myself and for them that you are exactly where you need to be in this moment. And that was a game changer, like changing that internal dialogue to something useful. So we went from, I'm always behind to I'm exactly where I need to be. And I'm not qualified to I'm learning and growing. So that's what you need to do. Challenge that narrative that's in your head. And so that's what we've covered tonight. We covered the 3 steps: reset, rewire, and rewrite. And this is the foundation of everything that we do in our practice. Because here's what I've learned after helping a number of people since we began our company at the end or the middle of 2024. And the couples and people that I've mentored over the years, even before we started our company. You're not broken. You just need the right tools. And so that's why, our company I mentioned before is Kaleidoscope Coaching Services. We help busy professionals just like you and just like me. We help you to rewrite the stories that are holding you back. So, if what we've talked about tonight resonates with you, I want to invite you to take the next step. I've created something called the Tailored Reset. Now, tailored resets are custom hypnosis audios that have been designed specifically for your situation. And the reason why they're designed for your situation is because they're based on a conversation that we'll have. And we'll highlight and determine a very ultra specific goal that you're trying to meet. And I'll create custom hypnosis sessions for you to listen to on demand. And you'll be able to access the changes anytime you need. So in the case of the tailored reset tool, right, I give you 3 audio programs. One is a 5-minute, what I call the boost. And that is something that you can use in specific situations. So imagine that you have an issue with confidence when you have to give presentations. So this audio is a little 5-minute push to give you that confidence to go in and nail that presentation. It also includes a standard hypnosis audio that lasts for somewhere between maybe 5 to 15 minutes. And then a deeper work session that you would do at home that you could listen to really help you hone in on that goal. These are not generic, they're personalized to your specific story, using your language and addressing your exact situation. So if you want to learn more, you can check out tailoredreset.coachingkaleidoscope.com. That's all one word. Tailoredreset.coachingkaleidoscope.com. Or if you want, you can connect with me directly. I'm on Instagram at Matthews Carlton. We also have our company has an Instagram page at Kaleidoscope Coach. And honestly, the most important thing is that you start somewhere. Begin noticing the stories that you tell yourself. Question whether they're serving you, and let that awareness alone start the transformation process. And remember, your current story isn't a life sentence. It's just the current version of your mental software. And like any software, it can be updated. So thank you for joining me tonight. Drop a heart in the chat if this was helpful, and I'll see you next time. Your new story is waiting to be written. Thanks.